And we welcome you back to another episode of Mindful Moments with licensed psychotherapist Leslie Cutler.
Hi, good to be here today, Julie.
Welcome back, Leslie.
Thank you so much.
Spring has sprung.
Oh, finally!
Yeah.
It is finally here.
It is. It's wonderful.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about something that a lot of people have a problem with, and it's stop being a people pleaser. So
Yes.
let's dig into this.
You know, I think one of the most freeing things we can learn in our life is that we don't have to like everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have to like us, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once we come to that, our lives significantly change. But I think for all of us, there have been those times where, you know, we have wanted so badly to fit in or maybe to be liked that perhaps we've done things that maybe we, you know, probably shouldn't have done or set a clearer boundary about. So today I want to talk about, you know, what is a people pleaser? And, you know, I think one thing that I need to state right up front is that, you know, doing nice things and helping out other people and being a good friend, all of that does not mean you're a people pleaser.
Right. That's just being a good person.
That's just
Right.
being a good human being.
But there's a difference between that and being a doormat.
And that's exactly the case. You know, and I think what the difference is for people pleasers, they yearn for this external approval on a level where so much of their self-esteem and sense of self is based around it.
Right.
And when they, you know, do these acts of people pleasing, there's this immediate high and then followed frequently by resentment and sadness.
Right. Because they didn't really want to do what they did.
Right, and they're overcommitted and they're exhausted and, you know, I mean,
Right.
all these things.
So you broke this down into basically 5 steps.
So I broke this down in just a couple of different steps. The first one, Julie,
Is admit and commit to change.
yeah,
Okay, so first we have to admit what? What are we admitting?
that you have a problem or I have a problem being a people pleaser.
Okay.
And I think this is key to working through just about anything.
Right.
You know, really kind of looking at it and saying, you know, I didn't like who I was in that situation. These are the things that I want to change about myself. Perhaps even writing down, you know, when I find myself in this situation, this is indeed what I want to do and how I want to approach it.
Okay.
You know, I think we've all known people that have been so exhausted and depleted that they're just snapping left and right.
Right.
But yet they continue to overcommit,
Yeah.
put themselves out there on a level that's ridiculous.
And they
So
know they shouldn't do it, but they keep doing it over and over and
they
over again.
can't
Right.
stop
And they can't say no.
they can't
Yeah,
say no.
right.
Which, you know, kind of leads us into the next one is really practicing hard to say no.
Right.
And, you know, I work with my clients a lot on this because I think many people fear that as soon as they start setting that boundary that their relationships are going to be destroyed. That people are going to think that maybe they're a mean person, that maybe they don't care about them, that sort of thing. So, you know, I work frequently with people and say, listen, let's set up some things that we can say or that feel comfortable, are true to you as a person and don't compromise who you are, but are still kind. You know, listen, I have this day booked, but perhaps we can meet for set a time frame, you know, between 10 and 12 tomorrow and look at this
Right.
further. Or, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm so overcommitted right now.
And you know, a lot of what I've noticed with friends and when I was helping in a lot of groups with my kids were growing up is it seems the same people are always on the committees and always doing everything. And you get to the point where you literally, you feel bad, but you have to say no.
Right.
So
right.
why does that happen all the time?
Well, I think people kind of look out for those people that are always the yes people, the people that are the doers. And there's nothing wrong with being a doer,
Right.
but it, you know, again, it's the point of knowing, looking at your schedule realistically and saying, hey, is this something I'm passionate about? Is this something that I'm willing to take on in this moment? You know, no is a word that many of us could really use more often than we do.
Right, right.
And, you know, so that is a bit of the challenge as well.
And you can't feel guilty about saying no.
Well, right, and that leads us to our next point, which is, you know,
Realize that your self-worth is not measured by external approval. And that's the hardest.
and that is the hardest.
Right.
You know,
Because we all want to be accepted and loved and appreciated, and that's how we do sometimes measure ourselves.
right, right. But when we find ourselves constantly in those positions of so wanting it so badly that we can't say no, usually there's a piece of our history or our childhood that needs to be examined in that. And, you know, and I say that in the most kindest way. You know, there's probably some sort of distortion or something going on that isn't healthy. And, you know, we can only, you know, get our self-validation from ourselves.
Right.
You know, we can only, you know, we need to be full, we need to be, you know, complete in order to find our own happiness.
Right. And don't you find that the older you get, the easier it is to just say, no, you know, this is what I'm worth, this is my time, I would love to help, and I will help to the best of my ability, but I'm not going to feel guilty about saying no. And I remember in my 20s and my 30s, I would say yes to everything. Oh, yes, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it.
Right.
And then you end up resenting what you're doing, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think as you get older, there's a certain amount of courage that comes with age.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
also think as you get older, you're a little bit more clear about how you want to spend your time, what you're passionate about, what you love. There will always be those few things that you'll give your time to, and then there's all this extra space.
Right.
And how you're going to spend it does change and shift as you get older.
Right.
And obviously when you're younger, if you have children, there's only so much time to be had.
Exactly.
Right.
Which leads to 4.
Yeah, except that you'll feel guilty the first few times.
When you say no, right?
Oh, my goodness. And it's very, very true.
Yeah.
People feel incredible guilt because it's something so different. It's pushing them out of their comfort zone. It's pushing them out of what they know. I always tell my clients, grab a journal, make a list of the pros and cons of doing XYZ task. More often than not, we find that the pros of not doing it are greater
than the pros of doing it. Yeah.
Right. So, take care of yourself in that way.
Right.
Realizing it's okay, that feeling's going to ride out. It's unnecessary guilt.
Now, does this saying no, it applies to your relationship with your children?
Yes.
Your relationship to your friends? Now, what about your relationship to work and your boss? And I mean, how do you translate it over to your actual work life?
And that's the hard part. And, it's, how do you set boundaries with your boss?
Right.
And that's always a challenge too. And that's where you can kind of use that time constraint. Oh, I have a meeting between 9 and 10. Well, why don't we meet at 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
We can talk about this for half an hour and we can figure out how this can fit into my schedule.
So be proactive with your time with your bosses.
Absolutely.
Okay, rather than being reactive.
Yes.
Okay.
Good point.
Okay.
Very good point.
Okay. And that leads us to the fifth thing, which is let go of the people who use you and use your people pleaser tendencies.
Yeah.
Now, this is hard.
And this is really hard.
Because how do you define someone as someone who's using you for your people pleaser tendencies versus someone who just knows you're great at something and wants you to be involved?
Well, I think the second you say no and that person disappears from your life, it's a very clear way of knowing. But I also think, too, the people that don't accept no for an answer, somebody who's friends with you will say, I understand.
Yeah.
But somebody who has motives that aren't necessarily pure are going to just keep badgering you and badgering you and badgering you.
Right.
And, you quickly realize once you start setting that boundary that these people will kind of fall along the wayside.
Right.
And it will happen quite quickly,
Right.
which is interesting. But, it's easy to slip back into old behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think this is something we've all struggled with at different points in our lives.
Absolutely.
And, sometimes we have to remind ourselves, wait just a second.
Yeah.
And, the other night I was cornered at an event and somebody just wouldn't stop. And I had to do the stall because in the moment that was all I could do was, you know what, let me think about this and get back to you.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Right.
So you can go away and really think about it. Is
Right.
this something that I want to use my time for?
Now, is it better to, if you're going to say no to someone, whether it's your child or your husband or your boss or a friend who wants you to work on a committee, to do it face-to-face, or is it better to take your time and maybe write an email where you can put all your thoughts down? What's your thought about that?
Well, it depends who it is. If it's a more formal setting, and it's about a committee or perhaps a PTA type event,
Right.
or something along those lines.
And
I
that's
think
the ones where you always have the same people.
it's always the
Always
same people.
the same
again.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, those I feel like it's fine to send an email.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to your spouse
Yeah,
or
send an email to your text your husband.
Text
I'm
your
not
husband.
taking out the garbage.
Not a chance. No. Those are the situations where you want to sit down and be like, I'm just not sure how we can make this work.
Right.
And make it a we. Because when it is somebody that you're close to, it does become a we. When it's a family member, it becomes a we.
Right.
We keep finding ourselves at this place. What can we do so that both of our time is honored and our needs are met?
Right. And it's a fine line too when you're teaching your children between being a people pleaser and being someone who people want to go to because you're a strong individual or you're good at something or you're great at organizing people and not being taken advantage of.
Right.
And you have to almost learn that really young.
You do.
That you got to set your parameters of your time, your energy, your space.
Yes.
And once you do that, you got it made.
Right, and that we're not defined by what we produce.
Right.
And I think that was a big struggle for me personally,
Yeah.
was realizing, I can do these things, but it does not define
Right.
who I am or who I want to be.
Right, right,
And so I think that focus is really important
right.
as well.
Your accomplishments are in your head and in your heart,
Bingo.
more than on paper.
Yes.
All right,
Very
Miss
much so.
Leslie.
Well, thank you so much,
More
Julie.
wonderful advice from you in our mindful moments, and
Thank
we'll have
you.
you back again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was great to be here.
And we're going to pass it over to Save the Date with Maureen Bates.